I just got out of theaters from seeing Marvel Studios' new movie Thunderbolts on the big screen, and I have some things that I want to talk about for this movie, guys. So without further ado, let's get into the movie review. Let's go. Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts is an action-adventure movie directed by Jake Schreier, and inside of this film we see, ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes, Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and John Walker embarks on a dangerous mission that forces them to confront the darkest corners of their past. So as you can hear there in that movie description, this is a team-up film, as we've seen, from all the posters, from all the trailers leading up to this, and quite honestly, going into this film, I had very low expectations. Marvel Studios has been very hit or miss with their films and with their TV series recently, so jumping into this movie starring a bunch of side characters and villains turned anti-heroes, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to get here. They were taking a huge chance on this film, but I'm glad to tell y'all that the chance paid off, okay? So let's start this review with my positives for Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts. And for my first positive with this film, I'm going to talk about how it pushes the boundaries of that PG-13 rating. Now, we all know a majority of the MCU is PG-13, outside of Deadpool and Wolverine, which is, the MCU's first rated R film, so salute to them for that. But Thunderbolts here, being a PG-13 film, it brings you right to the edge of rated R in a lot of different moments here. Not only is there a lot of cussing, a lot of swearing throughout this movie, some great one-liners from characters, but it also pushes the edge on the violence here. In one particular scene, we watch a character get lit up by a firing squad, and of course you aren't getting the blood, the guts squirting out there, but the fact that it depicted it in general, along with some other risky decisions that the director made for this film, I couldn't commend them more for what they did here, considering this is a PG-13 movie, and yeah, they pushed it to its limits here, which I could definitely respect. Now let's move on to my next positive with Thunderbolts, and that would be our cast here. Now, as you heard me list out in the description there, all of the different characters, members of the team, the Thunderbolts team that we got to see here inside of this film, it was a very risky take. A lot of these characters were not that popular outside of like Bucky Barnes, for example, maybe Florence Pugh's character, Yelena, that is kind of our new Black Widow here. But outside of that, I didn't care for these characters, okay? Taskmaster, I thought they did a very poor job with that inside the Black Widow film. Red Guardian was all right. He was a great comedic relief, as he is in this movie too. But characters like John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, characters like Ghost from, the Ant-Man movies, they aren't that compelling in those series, in those movies. So a very risky choice here for the MCU, but I gotta say, it did pay off. I loved the cast here. Very strong. They brought these characters to life. They put them on the main stage here, which I definitely appreciate. Now, we got to actually flesh out these characters, some of their past, some of their motivations. We got to see this group of misfits work together here for a common goal and kind of pull themselves together here for an overall bigger threat, which even they inside of this movie are surprised about, because these guys know who they are. They know the place that they serve inside of their world. They know which character they're playing. So to see them all take that next step up, again, outside of Bucky Barnes, he was already sort of an Avenger, but to see everyone else here take that next step up and really win the audience over in the way that they do inside of this film, it's fantastic. It really is. And I'm actually a huge fan of all of these characters. Now, they definitely won me over as an audience member. Now, we're going to move on to my next positive with this film, and that would have to be the comedy and the comedic relief characters inside of here. It was amazing. They did a great job with the writing here. Very strong. Great sense of timing when it came to these jokes, and a lot managed to stick, a lot managed to hit. I love seeing movies, especially Marvel movies, opening night, because the crowd is people who are definitely invested in the MCU, as am I. So to see how many times the crowd popped, how many laughs this movie got, how many great moments it had, great comedic scenes. For instance, the Red Guardian is hilarious inside of this movie. He adds to a lot of the comedy here. A new character added in here, Robert Reynolds, or as this movie refers to him as, Bob. He was hilarious inside of this movie, and those two really carried the comedy for a majority of this film. Of course, the MCU is known for always trying to quip, always trying to include comedic elements, but it really was on another level here inside of this movie, at least a level that we haven't seen it on in a very long time inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, let's move into my next positive with the Thunderbolts, and that would have to be the villain here. Guys, it's no hidden problem inside the MCU. If you're a fan of these movies, you know the MCU has a villain problem. In a lot of their films, a lot of the villains are weak, they're lackluster, they're forgettable, but I'm glad to say that here that is not the case, at least halfway, because one of the essential villains, the overarching villain inside of this film, is Sentry. Now, we got to see a glimpse of what he looks like and a glimpse of his powers inside the trailer for this movie, but man, when you watch it inside of this film, it's on another level here. The way that he uses his power comes across extremely evil, extremely villainous. When he attacks someone, the way that their shadow is left on the ground as seen in the trailer for this film, it's very reminiscent to something like what the Hiroshima bombs did to the victims of that attack, and how when you look at old photos you could see shadows on the ground of people that were there and then were obliterated. It's very similar inside of this movie to the depiction, okay? And it was masterfully done. I love the way that they did this. It also has sort of an effect on the characters here that taps into the darkness that's inside of them, which helps with, you know, getting to explore these characters more. And that was all done fantastic. This is a villain that will be remembered. This is one we'll talk about for years to come when it comes to the MCU, and easily one that we got to place within the top 10, if not top 5 villains in the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, let's get into my final positive for the movie Thunderbolts, and it would have to be the directing, the camera work, the cinematography. It's amazing. It's better than it's been in quite some time inside the MCU. It really is distinct in the way it's presented to the audience. I love a lot of the shots that were captured here, especially, for example, one that we got to see inside of the trailer where they're all in the elevator together. You get to see the whole team together. You get a fantastic shot of them, one that could be screenshotted, it could be framed on your wall. That's how good it was. And there's a lot of other shots like that inside of this movie. It's compelling. It leads itself to the action that we get here, and it's just an amazing job done, not only from our director, but, you know, the cinematographer on this movie and everyone else who assisted with capturing the shots here. Now, with that being said, those were my positives for the movie Thunderbolts, and it's time that we move into my negatives for Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. And for my first negative with this film, we're going to touch on the character Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who is a congressman. She is the director of the CIA, and she is a very powerful person inside of the government of the United States of America, at least, you know, inside of this movie world. Now, while I like some of what we got here with her character, it definitely wasn't all bad. You know, the acting is definitely there. I gotta say, guys, it brings us back to, again, the villain problem inside of the MCU, because she is sort of our breakout villain here and kind of one that sticks as one of the main villains for the duration of this film. And the problem with her character is it's another guy in a suit. Okay, we've seen a lot of these inside the MCU. You know, all of the worst villains inside the MCU are guys in a suit. As I talked about more in my MCU villains tier list, where we ranked all the villains, you know, best to worst, the guys in the suit are the worst, and that's kind of the category she fits into inside of this film. Now, while of course they gender swapped it, she's a woman instead of a guy in a suit. She's a woman in a suit, but it's the same exact role. It's the same archetype of character, where this character is really nothing special. They're just there to move the plot along so we can get into the things that we really care about inside of this movie. And yeah, I'm not really a fan of how often the MCU implements these type of villains, okay? But luckily, of course, Sentry was inside of this film, which really blows it out of the water in terms of a villain aspect. Now, let's move into my next and my final positive with the movie Thunderbolts, and it would have to be that they completely waste a character here, okay? I'm not going to say exactly who it is, but it is someone that in the comics is a very important character, and here they're just wasted, okay? They just throw them away like they meant nothing at all. It's, why did you even introduce this character at the time you did, if that's what you were going to do with them? And it happened so early inside of this movie. What are we doing here? I wasn't a fan of that at all. Again, for spoiler reasons, we'll talk about it in the spoiler section. I'm not going to say it here as to who specifically I'm mentioning, who specifically I'm talking about, but damn, MCU, what are we doing here? That was a bad decision, at least I believe so, but it is what it is, okay? Now, those are my negatives pretty much wrapped up here, so let's move into my overall review for Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. Guys, this was a fantastic return for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was a great way to make themselves relevant again, to refreshen the MCU, to launch a new IP here. I can't stress how big it is that they finally launched a new IP, that being the Thunderbolts. Yes, it's made up of a bunch of characters we've seen already for the most part, but they really took a chance here. So much of a chance that I had a negative viewpoint going in to see this movie. I couldn't care less about seeing it, other than the fact that they slapped that Marvel Studios label on top of this film. But I gotta say, they did a great job here. It's a real movie. It's a real film. It's not just a superhero movie. It's an actual film with superheroes in it, and those are the best type of superhero films, hands down. Now, I love how far they pushed the boundaries here on the PG-13 rating. I love the cast here, how strong they are. Florence Pugh is amazing inside of here. She sort of is our protagonist for this film, being our new Black Widow. But not just her, guys. All of these characters leveled up. They all went to the next level. They all are ready for the main stage. I actually care about and love all of these characters. I love their backstories, you know, the traumas that they've experienced, the things they've gone through to get to this point, the things that made them who they are, and you could see them trying to change here again into more of that anti-hero role. And I think we have a team that's here to stay. For instance, we have the Avengers, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy, so that's sort of our two teams here, and now we have a third one inside the MCU with the Thunderbolts, and I couldn't be happier about the way that this movie turned out. The villain here is fantastic. The camera work, the cinematography, the directing is on another level. They really put that $180 million budget to use. You could feel it when you watch this movie. It's a big budget Hollywood movie, and this is one I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy. I think a lot of people are going to be rewatching this for years to come. I know I will. And yeah, the MCU is back. That's what I have to say to you guys. The MCU is back. Hopefully from here on out, we're on a, an uptrend as we lead into Avengers Doomsday next year. And I couldn't be more happier with the direction that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going into. As a lifelong MCU fan, I'm here to stay, especially if we're going to keep getting films like this. So with that being said, let's move into my rating for Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. I give the Thunderbolts a 9 out of 10. It gets the 9 out of 10. They did a great job here. I definitely want to go check this out for a second time, just so I could really feel all of those emotions again. Make sure you guys go out and see this opening weekend. There's no better experience than seeing this with the real fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're going to feel it in the crowd. It's a different type of energy, and I love being there opening night. Now, with all of that out the way, if you want to see me sign out this video, you can click past the spoiler section, okay? If you don't want this movie spoiled for you. But if you've already seen the film, if you've already seen Marvel Studios Thunderbolts, then stick around, because we're going to get into my spoiler section for Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. And as always, in the spoiler section, we're going to talk a bit more freely. I'm not going to be as, by the book as I go down the list of my notes here. We're just going to bounce around to different things I thought were interesting and that are related to the plot when it comes to this movie, Thunderbolts. Now, let's start with the intro, okay? Who was I talking about in my negative section? What character did they waste? Well, it's in the very intro of this film when all of these characters were sent to one location to kill each other, where they, of course, had to team up with each other, and that's Taskmaster. What the hell, MCU? What are we doing here? Why did y'all do that to Taskmaster? One, why did you gender swap them? They've been doing that a lot. They did that with the Silver Surfer, for example. It's a little weird. It doesn't bother me too much, though, as long as the character is strong, as long as it's written well, as long as it's done justice, but it wasn't. Taskmaster was not done justice inside the Black Widow film, and they definitely weren't done justice inside this movie, Thunderbolts. Why are they on all the promotional material for this movie? Why are they on the posters? We don't need this character anywhere near this film if you're just going to murder them in the intro to the damn movie, okay? We're not even 20 minutes into this movie and Taskmaster gets a fucking bullet in the head. We see blood dripping out. The shit was crazy. Like I said, they were pushing that PG-13 rating. I did appreciate the depiction of violence there, but damn, we're just gonna kill off Taskmaster? This is an awesome character inside the comics, an awesome character that they could have done a lot more with here. This is a character that can imitate anyone's fight style, for the most part, anyone. Of course, certain characters are unique in their fight style, but for the most part, Taskmaster can implement your fighting style, can take it, can memorize it, can copy it, and can use it against you, okay? They're like fucking Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja in Naruto. But yeah, that character was just wasted. Bullet in the head, and MCU's done with Taskmaster. I guess they didn't like how they wrote them inside the Black Widow film. I didn't either, but as a lot of the characters inside of this movie, I didn't really like the way they were written in their previous material. We could have changed it for this film as we did with all these other characters. It didn't feel necessary to kill her off, but it is what it is, man. So, all right, now that we've discussed Taskmaster, let's move into the next thing that I wanted to talk about here, and that is the new Avengers. Holy shit, guys, this was a huge reveal inside of this movie. The fact that, you know, they're branding this team as the new Avengers, I'm guessing this is going to be, you know, a lot of the essential characters that we're getting here as we move into Avengers Doomsday. This is a monumental moment for the MCU. This is a very big change of guard inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're taking a huge leap here, a huge risk, and man, if this movie was terrible, that new Avengers ending would have been fucking awful. But luckily for us, for the fans, luckily for Marvel Studios themselves, this movie turned out amazing. They put a lot of stock into it, and it's paying off for all of us, everyone involved, everyone who cares about this. And yeah, Thunderbolts is the new Avengers team. That's insane. Of course, we're probably going to get like Sam Wilson to join the team. Now, again, we'll talk about it more in the post-credit scene. There's more to Sam Wilson that we have to discuss here, but we have the new Avengers, guys. That is a huge reveal, okay? They didn't want to put it on the promotional material. They went with Thunderbolts just to be safe and sound. And yeah, I would say it paid off for them. I'm excited to see what this team does next. We have these anti-heroes, you know, they're not the most powerful outside of Sentry, and I just can't wait to see what they do with these characters come, you know, our next new Avengers movie, or our next Avengers movie in general. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited about this. Now, let's move into the post-credit scenes, okay? I want to talk post-credit scenes because there is two of them, as usual with these Marvel films. First things first, the mid-credit scene, as they call it. Okay, we get a nice little comedic scene of David Harper's character, which, by the way, David Harper, I love the direction his career is going. I loved him inside Stranger Things. I loved him inside this film. He's doing a really good job, okay? He really carried the comedy here in a lot of the scenes inside of this movie, and it's no different inside this post-credit scene because we see that the new Avengers, we see that the Thunderbolts have their own Wheaties box, as they made a little comment, a little joke at earlier in the movie. In the post-credit scene, we get to see it really did happen, okay? They're over all this merchandise. They're all over the Wheaties box, which is really cool. And he's kind of wanting the person standing there in front of the Wheaties box inside the store, I don't know, this woman, to notice that he's on the box. And she's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm gonna go the different direction, okay? She doesn't recognize him, but I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was great. And it's just more on the funny side before we move into the actual credit scene that matters, the next actual end credit scene at the very end of this movie, and that would be that the new Avengers are now branding, you know, they have their own logo that they're going with. We got our new Avengers logo revealed here. Not sure how I feel about it. The earlier logo did look better. I think they could adjust this one just slightly, like if they moved the A up just a little and it kind of resembled the other one, it would look a little better here. But nonetheless, I'm excited about what we're getting here. And it's time to talk about Sam Wilson because he gets brought up inside this post-credit scene. That is, of course, our new Captain America here. And of course, being as that Sam Wilson is a part of the original Avengers, of course, he is pushing back against this new Avengers. He even copyrighted the term New Avengers so that our new Avengers team could not use that name. They had to change it, had to put a Z at the end, which is a nice little joke there. But yeah, we got some pushback from the new Captain America there, so we'll see where that goes. I'm sure, of course, eventually they'll end up becoming one big team here, but it's going to take some work inside of these movies. And let's move into the most important part about this post-credit scene, and that is we hear that something is entering the atmosphere, okay? We have a new spaceship coming into the atmosphere of Earth. We're like, what the hell is this? Pull it up on the screen, guys. Let's see what this is. It's the fucking Fantastic Four, okay? We got the Fantastic Four inside the MCU. Finally, We of course knew they were coming. We have a Fantastic Four trailer already out. We have a Fantastic Four movie scheduled to release this summer. We knew that this was coming, but the fact that it's not an alternate universe as it appears to be inside the Fantastic Four trailer, the fact that these guys are breaking the boundary, breaking the universe, and coming to the timeline that is the MCU, I think that's crazy, okay? I'm glad the direction we're going here. We're gonna have all of these characters together, lined up for the Avengers Doomsday movie. We got the Fantastic Four arriving, and that was a huge, big moment. It got a huge crowd pop. You know, I was very excited about it. And the future of the MCU is looking very bright here, guys. It looked a little rocky, a little shaky at times. Quite honestly, I liked a lot of the movies that majority of people didn't like. I thought the MCU wasn't too down in the dumps outside of some of their TV series. Those were abysmal. Those were terrible. But for the movie side of things, movies like Multiverse of Madness, I loved Multiverse of Madness. I thought it was fantastic, but a lot of people didn't, as well as a lot of the other movies that dropped inside of this most recent phase. So that being said, we're getting films here that everyone could be on board with, and I couldn't be more happier about that. I really think, you know, the people are going to enjoy this movie when they go see it in theaters. And yeah, now that's kind of, for the most part, what I wanted to talk about here. Let's address one more scene, actually. Sentry, okay? When he gets his suit, of course, this is Bob, a great, hilarious comedic relief character turned super villain inside of this movie. When they turn him into Sentry, when he links up with Fontaine and she gives him the suit, dyes the hair, I thought he looked fantastic, okay? I thought that was a great depiction for his character. But then you see, you know, a switch snap inside of him of, well, why do I have to listen to any of you? Including Fontaine. Why do I have to listen to? I don't have to listen to you. I'm a god now. Okay, I'm invincible. I have all these superpowers. I can't even be harmed, which makes me a god. You said I could defeat all of the old Avengers team, which includes a god, that being Thor, on their team. So I'm a god in my own right. I don't have to listen. I can do whatever I want. That was a fantastic moment there. I loved it. And then we get the fight scene of they're all like, okay, we got to take this guy down. He's getting out of hand. Bob, you gotta go, okay? They all rush Bob. They're all fighting him together. They're trying out their own techniques, their own, you know, uniqueness. And of course, none of it's working. This guy is invincible. He just brushes them all off like they're nothing to him, destroys them, doesn't kill them because he feels like a god. He feels like killing is beneath him. They're not a threat to me. Why should I kill them? They're nothing. I thought that was a fantastic scene here. When he turns dark, when we get like the all black, you know, version of him and the scary white eyes, and then, you know, he's killing people in the street. I love that they took a risk with the child scene. An insane scene, guys. That was fantastic what they did with that scene. That's a very audience shocking and gripping moment there where we see a child get saved by the Red Guardian. You're all right, little one. You know, he wants to have his hero moment, and you just see a shadow of her get dashed on the ground. Holy shit. Now, this is before it's revealed to us that you can survive this shadow realm. Once you go there, the people inside of it can be saved. They can be returned to the, you know, actual New York City, to the actual world. But that's before we know that. For the most part, it's presented to us, it's presented to the audience that Sentry is murdering people here, which is insane. So when he dashes that little girl, you're thinking, my god, he just killed a fucking child. This movie is really pushing the boundary here. It's insane. And I love that they went dark with it there. I love that they did that. When you see the shadows, you know, dashing and it's growing over New York City, horrifying, terrifying. When you get into the nightmare realm here, where Yelena almost sacrifices herself, runs into the shadow, you're thinking, damn, what is she thinking? But once you actually get into this world here and you see that this is something that you can navigate through, but you're gonna have to deal with all of your past traumas, and we got to, you know, get more depth out of our character backgrounds here. Fantastic stuff here, what they managed to achieve inside of this movie. I loved all of it. And that's really all I wanted to talk about, all I wanted to discuss here for this film. I feel like we touched on all the main spoilers here for the most part. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Now, let's go ahead and sign us out, guys, now that we've discussed all of that. If you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews, as well as other movie-based content. So if you're interested in any of this movie-based content, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.